in the cradle of the earliest civilizations, where the golden light of dawn kissed the shifting sands, there existed an enigmatic figure whose presence was less flesh and more force. Whispered through time, this being was never bound by age, name, or form. He was the architect behind the very concept of articulation, the silent weaver of symbols, and the unseen hand that gave birth to language. Not merely a teacher of words, but the breath behind them, this entity laid the first stones on the path to conscious thought. When the ancient peoples looked to the sky and saw the stars dance in patterns, they did not see chaos, they saw messages. Symbols, codes. It was he who taught them to read the heavens, to understand the cyclical nature of the cosmos, and to capture their understandings in glyphs and scrolls. Before alphabets, before even the notion of script, he gave them the impulse to remember, not just through memory, but through marks that would last across millennia. Writing was not only a tool, it was sacred, a portal to truth. The scroll was not merely parchment, it was a temple. The pen, a sacred staff. And every written word was a living entity imbued with power. Legends from far corners of the earth speak of him in different ways. In one tale, he descends upon a mountain shrouded in starlight, offering the gift of language to a tribe who spoke only through the rustle of leaves and the sound of fire. In another, he is said to have constructed the first library, not of books, but of symbols etched into obsidian walls that glowed in the moonlight. Pilgrims would come from distant lands, drawn not by force, but by a pull within, the feeling that something vital awaited them, something that once known could never be forgotten. He was not a ruler by crown, nor a warrior by sword. His power did not manifest in conquest, but in clarity. Where others built empires of sand and gold, he built civilizations of thought. His followers, scribes, mystics, astronomers, and healers, did not serve him, but carried forward fragments of his eternal vision. Through their hands, ancient languages took form, and through their voices, lost wisdom found echo. He was the seed behind every sacred text, every mystical chant, every coded diagram etched into temple walls. His architecture was not only of buildings, but of minds. He unlocked the doors of intuition and reason. To those ready, he unveiled the connection between thought and creation. Words were not merely descriptors, but instruments of reality. One need only speak with true understanding, and the universe would shift in response. Many adepts spent lifetimes attempting to grasp even a sliver of his knowledge, knowing that a single grain could change the course of a generation. He did not seek worship, he sought understanding, and in return, he gave humanity the rarest of gifts, the ability to reflect upon itself. This power, the ability to observe thought, to question nature, to imagine a world beyond survival. This was the fire he carried in his palm, and when he passed it on, civilization was born. The great monuments of stone, the ziggurats and obelisks that still confound engineers today, were not merely feats of architecture. They were harmonies frozen in time, inspired by his presence. For behind each was a code, a ratio, a principle handed down from the being who first taught that numbers, too, were a language. To this day, the remnants of his touch remain. Not in grand temples alone, but in the symbols etched into our dreams, the words we choose in moments of vulnerability, the music that stirs the soul without explanation. He is there, always watching, not as a god among men, but as a principle interwoven into the very fabric of what it means to know, to learn, and to awaken. There is a realm beyond sight, where the air carries the weight of silence and time flows like a spiral rather than a line. Between this world and the one we call real, of stone and flesh, of breath and blood, there exists a threshold, and it is at this threshold that he stands, the eternal sentinel who understands both light and shadow. Neither confined to the land of the living nor a stranger to the domain of the dead, he walks freely between both, not as a visitor, but as a native of each. He was not born, nor did he die. He simply was and is. In ancient visions, he appears at the moment of transition, when a soul departs the body, when a life ends and the great question looms. He does not offer comfort or punishment. His presence alone reminds the departing soul that there is order to the journey, that death is not an ending but a continuation of something deeper. He is not a ferryman, but a revealer. He opens the inner eyes of those who pass, helping them see the tapestry of their lives, the ripple their choices have created, the truth of what they truly were beneath the masks worn in the material world. He does not judge. Judgment is not his domain. Instead, he reveals, and in the revelation, a soul weighs itself. Through ancient rites and silent rituals, he taught the wise how to prepare for that moment. Not through fear, but through understanding. Death to him was not a punishment, but a passage, and life not a random spark, but a sacred trial where the soul forgets itself only to remember once more. The rituals of the ancient world, those strange and precise ceremonies involving oils, incantations, and offerings, were not superstition. They were encoded memories of his teachings. In the temples where priests whispered hymns in languages now lost, his instructions were passed down: how to maintain the integrity of the soul across both planes, how to walk in balance. For he taught that one's essence must remain whole, not only in life, where it is fractured by ego and desire, but especially in the transition, where fragments can scatter like ashes if one is unprepared. He knew the consequences of imbalance. In a world where the spirit is forgotten, it becomes heavy, and when the end arrives, that weight drags it into confusion. This is why he stressed harmony between thought and action, desire and purpose, body and soul. He taught that true mastery came from understanding both realms and serving neither as a slave. The living who feared death were as bound as the dead, who could not let go of life. In ancient depictions, his figure stands over scales, not to tip them, but to observe. The heart, the seat of the soul, is weighed against a symbol so light it defies substance. This was not metaphor. It was a truth seen only by those who had crossed the veil and returned. Through dreams, trances, and revelations, he appeared to mystics and seers, offering glimpses of what lay beyond the veil of mortality. Those who experienced it could never again see life the same way. For once you understand the passage, the journey becomes sacred. He understood duality not as opposition, but as reflection. Life and death, day and night, chaos and order, each required the other to exist. In his presence, there was no fear of contradiction. He embodied paradox with serenity. He could guide a soul into light, just as easily as he could illuminate the path through shadow. Many who served him sought this balance in their own lives, becoming mediators between the known and the unknown, keepers of the mysteries, bearers of the in-between. Even in the physical realm, he taught his initiates to honor death not as an interruption, but as a mirror. Festivals of the dead, songs sung to ancestors, silent moments beside tombs. These were not simply cultural rites, but echoes of his teaching that to truly live, one must walk in constant awareness of the other realm. To forget it was to drift into chaos. To remember it was to live deliberately, consciously, fully. His mastery over both realms was not a domination, but an integration. He never closed the doors to either world, but taught how to open them with reverence and wisdom. In the silence behind all things, beyond the veil of action and consequence, there exists a record. Not a book, not a scroll, not even a memory, but something subtler, more enduring, more alive. It is said that every thought ever conceived, every word spoken into the wind, every emotion felt in the depth of the soul is inscribed into this invisible ledger. And the one who records it, tirelessly and without pause, is the scribe who never sleeps. He does not sit at a desk, nor does he hold ink or stylus in a conventional sense. His script is light and shadow, vibration and pattern. He writes not for glory nor to shame, but because the cosmos must remember. Without memory, there is no justice. Without record, there is no becoming. His task is sacred, not because it grants him power, but because it upholds the very balance of existence. Those who have glimpsed the other side speak of a chamber where the past breathes, not in recollection, but in revelation. Here one sees not just what one did, but why. Every hidden motive, every secret desire, every moment of hesitation or silent courage is laid bare. The keeper of this chamber is not cold. He does not scold or forgive. His presence simply reveals. For revelation is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is the first spark of transformation. His followers understood that destiny was not imposed but grown, woven thread by thread with each decision. Fate was not a sentence, but a sculpture carved by the hand of will. Still, each stroke was noted, each shaping movement archived. The scribe watched not with judgment, but with infinite precision. In the ancient schools of wisdom, it was taught that nothing escapes the record, not even a fleeting thought, not even a wish unspoken. It is all there, etched in what some called the Book of Life, others the Akashic Field, others still simply the memory of the divine. The scribe did not merely record the personal. Nations rose and fell under his watch. He captured the thoughts of kings in their final hour, the cries of newborns, the quiet prayers whispered in forgotten tongues. He archived not just what happened, but how it unfolded, how it rippled, how it altered the web of time. Those who sought true spiritual growth turned to him, not to rewrite their past, but to face it. For in the record there is no hiding, only the raw truth of who one is beneath the mask of who one pretends to be. In mystery schools and hidden temples, Initiates would undergo the ritual of the mirror, a rite said to invoke his presence. Before them appeared a reflection, not of the body, but of the soul's journey. They would witness every unkindness, every act of compassion, every cowardice, and every moment of bravery. And in that witnessing, they either broke or awakened. For to see oneself fully is the greatest challenge of all. There are tales of prophets who walked with him in their dreams, awoken by symbols too vast for words. They would return with teachings that spoke not in commandments, but in insights. The lesson was always the same: you are being witnessed, not by an external God, not by a punishing force, but by the record of your own becoming. And in that awareness, the soul learns to live differently, more intentionally, more truthfully. He taught that no deed is ever truly private, no choice ever lost to time. Everything leaves an imprint. This truth, once internalized, reshapes a life. For when one knows that the scribe watches not to punish, but to preserve, even the smallest moments begin to glow with meaning. A glance, a breath, a silence. They are all entered into the book that does not forget. The wise knew this, and so they lived in harmony with the record, writing their lives not in haste or fear, but as sacred stories worthy of remembrance. Long before numbers were used to count coins or measure crops, and before symbols were reduced to mere letters on a page, they held a sacred power, a resonance felt by those attuned to the hidden structure of the universe. At the heart of this secret was a mysterious figure, not a mathematician nor an artist in any conventional sense, but something beyond both. He was a revealer, a conduit through which the blueprint of existence flowed into human understanding. What others saw as lines and curves, he saw as keys to the divine order. He walked among ancient builders and silent sages, revealing to them the geometry that governed the stars and the architecture that echoed the heavens. To the untrained eye, a triangle was just a shape, but to those he taught, it was the vessel of balance, the foundation of strength, and the silent echo of mind, body, and spirit in unison. A circle was not simply a loop, but a symbol of eternity, without beginning or end, mirroring the cycles of time, the passage of the soul, the breath of the cosmos. He did not teach in words alone. He guided through vision, through initiation, through symbols that spoke directly to the soul. The spiral, the vesica piscis, the golden ratio, each one a doorway, a code, a secret hidden in plain sight. Those who carried his knowledge became the architects of temples, the creators of calendars, the keepers of time. They aligned structures not for beauty alone, but to harness celestial power, to open portals between the seen and unseen. Numbers to him were never mere quantities. They were living principles, cosmic laws dressed in numerical skin. 1 was the source, the unity from which all sprang. 2 was the mirror, the division that birthed duality, contrast, and desire. 3 was the reconciliation, the child of tension resolved, the triangle pointing heavenward. He taught that each number contained a vibration, and that vibration could influence reality. In sacred rituals, numbers were spoken as invocations, their power activating forces invisible to the common eye. His understanding of numbers extended beyond utility into harmony. He demonstrated that the universe was music made solid, and that every atom danced to an inaudible frequency. He gave mankind the concept of proportion, of rhythm, of sacred sound embedded in structure. A column was not simply built, it was tuned. A chamber was not merely carved, it was calibrated. Through him, architecture became a spiritual act, not just shelter for bodies but sanctuary for souls. He revealed that language and mathematics were twins, born of the same mother, that symbols used in writing, when arranged with sacred intent, could alter consciousness. He spoke of the logos, the word, not just as communication, but as creation itself. To speak with knowledge of symbols was to manifest, to bridge thought and form, spirit and matter. Those who practiced his teachings became careful with their words, knowing that each one shaped the world around them. He inscribed these truths in glyphs that could not decay, not carved into stone, but into memory, into the geometry of dreams, into the way light bends through glass. Some say his teachings survived in coded texts, others in forgotten ruins, others still in the genetic memory of awakened souls. To those with eyes to see, his presence can be found in the arrangement of petals on a flower, the spacing of planets in orbit, the fractal branching of trees. He did not just reveal knowledge, he embodied it. He became the living expression of the idea that everything is connected through structure, through order, through sacred pattern. Those who followed his path learned to read the world not as a collection of disconnected parts, but as a unified whole, a great symbol, alive with intention. They became geomancers, numerologists, mystics fluent in a language older than speech, with compass and ink, with breath and song. They carried his legacy forward, preserving the codes for a time when the world would once again be ready to understand that truth has a shape and the divine speaks in number. Throughout the ages, as empires rose and fell, and kings crowned themselves beneath fading suns, a thread of wisdom wound quietly through the corridors of time. It never shouted, never demanded, never sought dominion over the hearts of men, yet it endured, not in the annals of history written by victors, but in the margins, in the whispers, in the silent spaces between what is taught and what is felt. This wisdom, though buried beneath centuries of war, dogma, and forgetting, remained untouched because it was never truly gone. It had only disguised itself, waiting for the eyes that could see and the hearts that could remember. It was said to be carried first by a figure who walked before time was tracked, whose voice echoed not from the mouth, but from the soul. He did not give sermons or write books for public consumption. Instead, he wove his teachings into the architecture of symbols, the cadence of sacred chants, the precise alignment of temples with starlight. He knew that truth, when spoken too plainly, would be twisted. So he spoke in riddles, in metaphors, in patterns too perfect to be accidental. Those with superficial minds dismissed them as mere decoration, but the initiated knew better. They saw maps hidden in mosaics, instructions in the folds of ancient garments, and codes written into the proportions of statues carved from forgotten stone. His knowledge was encoded in systems that survived through secrecy. Mystery schools, alchemical manuscripts, and oral traditions passed from teacher to student under moonlight. These schools did not promise wealth or power, but awakening. They taught that true wisdom must be earned, not granted. The student had to shed illusion, ego, and fear before they were even allowed to glimpse the deeper layers. Only then could they begin to decipher the messages left behind by the one who carried the original flame. Over centuries, his presence transformed into legend, and legend into myth. Yet he remained woven into the subconscious of humanity. You could find him in the winged figures guarding tombs, in the robed silhouettes holding scrolls beneath temple domes, in the recurring motifs of balance, light, and rebirth across cultures that supposedly never touched. He had been removed from the surface of memory, but his influence bled through every culture that valued truth over comfort. The wisdom he passed on was not just intellectual, it was alchemical. It changed those who embraced it. It revealed that the outer world was but a reflection of the inner, that the divine spark did not dwell in a faraway sky, but within the very breath of every soul. He taught the secrets of transformation not by force, but by resonance. That when one lived in alignment with the laws of nature and the order of the stars, life became not a struggle, but a harmonious unfolding. Even as the material world rushed forward, distracted by spectacle and intoxicated with control, his teachings endured beneath the noise. Some found them in dreams, in symbols that returned again and again without explanation. Others stumbled upon them in books that seemed to find them rather than the other way around. And some, without ever hearing his name, lived his truths instinctively, drawn towards silence, integrity, contemplation, and the hidden patterns in all things. He did not ask to be worshipped. He asked only to be remembered, not in name, but in essence. And so he allowed his image to dissolve, trusting that those who were ready would find him again, not in the history books, but in geometry, in music, in the rising of the sun and the rhythm of the breath. He became the teacher without form, the presence behind the quest. He left no monument to himself, but countless monuments to truth. And in this way, his wisdom became immortal, not because it resisted time, but because it became time itself. Hidden in plain sight, in every ritual done with care, in every symbol traced with intention, in every question asked not out of doubt, but out of devotion, he remains across time. Behind veils of mystery and fragments of forgotten lore, a current of wisdom has moved silently, untouched by decay, undisturbed by noise. Its bearer was never meant to be worshipped, only remembered, not as a figure bound to form, but as a presence etched into every discipline that seeks truth. The precision of sacred numbers, the balance between life and death, the power of thought, and the silent record of every soul's journey. This story is not about a name, a statue, or a distant myth. It is about what lives within you, the call to remember the hidden order beneath chaos, the echo of ancient knowledge that stirs when you seek meaning in symbols, when your heart weighs your own actions, when your thoughts shape your world more than your hands ever could. His legacy is not locked away in temples or scrolls, but flowing in the way you live, learn, and awaken. To know this truth is to walk the path of the seeker, not chasing light blindly, but walking with eyes open to shadow and spirit alike. Those who feel the pull of this wisdom do not need a shrine. They become the shrine. For the real temple is within, and its flame has never gone out.